Now let's spend a few minutes taking a closer look at this topic of awareness. John, the magnificent poetry of the Psalms is how you began your compelling message. Be still and know that I am God. If you were to take one of those holy moments you describe, and you just transport us there, John, what would be on your list of joys, like the list that you came across from an earlier time?
Oh, the taste of a good cup of tea, sitting with my wife by a candlelit dinner, being out by a creek. I've always loved a babbling creek, and the rocks, seeing the rocks that have been formed over the years by that. There's so many little things, you know. It isn't the big bombastic moments that remind us so much of God, I think, as it is the little things. I had my wife and I have been having some massage therapy. And we have this lovely lady named Ronnie who does it. And the other day I'd had a massage and I was complimenting her on what a sanctified feeling it gave me, how it was almost a sacred feeling because she's so reverent about the body and the way she handles it. And her response was, I have a mantra. And I said, what's your mantra? She said, be still and know that I am.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you too, John, we think of awareness associated with quiet a lot of times, but it's not always found in the quietness, is it? There's other times we can discover it.
That's true. We can be disturbed, or I guess we could find God and feel God even if somebody's right outside the window with a concrete digger or something like that. I think, though, probably it's in the cessation of the noise, perhaps in that switchover that we discover God. I think about Elijah in the cave when God wasn't in the strong wind and the storm and all of that, but he was in the still small voice that followed all of that. And I think it's that, it's difficult in the busyness of life, in the bluster of everything. It's difficult to feel things. As I said, our senses are being bombarded by so many sensations that we may not feel God in quite the same depth and reverie that we feel when there's quiet. And it may be that the switching from the noise to the quiet is important too. I don't know.
I'm reminded of the film Babette's Feast, based on the short story by Isaac
thing.
Denison on a Danish peninsula.
Right.
And Babette, through her sacrificial gift, the film, of course, is more about relationships than food, gives all that she has to prepare this meal for a group of pious little believers who've been bickering among themselves. And it's her gift. And the awareness, you remember the film?
Yes, very vividly. We had, when I lived in Lynchburg, we had a lady in our church who prepared the communion bread. And she had an old-fashioned machine that made these little pellets that stamped a cross on the top of them. And they were delicious. You know, so much communion bread it tastes like plastic or something, and you have to kind of imagine that God is in that. But you knew God was in her bread, and it was a gift that she always gave to the church. And I hated it when she moved out of town and took her machine with her.
but that brings people together.
Oh, it does. Yes.
And the awareness. And in the film Babette's Feast, it was the general who was the only one who recognized the taste of that food.
Right.
And knew that Babette had to have been the head chef at the Café Anglais in Paris. But John, you say that the wonders of life are like a garment of God. I love, you speak metaphorically in your imagery. It just transports us to these moments. Where does that come from?
Oh, thank you. I suppose I'm guilty of being able to think only that way. I don't have an analytical mind. I worked among analysts all my life in schools and places, but my own mind pictures things. I wanted to be an artist when I was a boy, and so I see things in pictures and images, more poetry than anything else. And in defense of that, I think maybe the world is better known in poetry than it is in prose, but who knows?
Well, you talk about your experience, and you've just written a new book, Winter Solstice, which I've read and is really inspiring and
thank you.
insightful. in relation to our topic, do you think awareness gets any easier the older you get, the more
Yes.
experience you have?
Yes, that's one of the points I make in the book, and that's why it's called S-O-U-L-S-T-I-C-E, because I think as we approach that time in our lives that's a little akin to the real winter solstice, we're getting older, there's time then to retire from the activity of life and to appreciate our own sensibilities and how they put things together, and how God has been active in all the strands of our lives leading up till now. And I confess that until I sat down to write that book, I wasn't aware of a lot of them and how they were coming together in my own existence.
You describe the strands in your life, the relationships, the experience, the memories, the people, the family, all these things coming together like streams of a tributary. I love that image.
Yes.
And do you have to be part of the wisdom years in order to gather all this in?
No, I'm sure you don't, Lydia, but it certainly helps to be able to review a lot, you know, not just to have a little evidence, but to have a lot of evidence and be at a point in your life where you're relaxed enough to look back. I wish I'd had it when I was 40 or 50, but I was so busy then I didn't see it as much. Now I see it more. And I think for all of the people all over this country and all over the world who are older, one of the blessings of life is being able to feel wise about all these things. That subtitle wasn't mine, incidentally. My editor chose that, called them the wisdom years, and I like that because that's better than senior years even.
But this book is really your memoir, isn't it?
It is. I didn't start out to write a memoir, but it turned out that way because as I tried to illustrate the different chapters, who did I know better than myself?
In the book, the Don Quixote factor, what was that?
Well, the Don Quixote factor for me was the habit I've had throughout my adult life, and particularly in my ministry, of tilting at windmills that often got me wounded and left me lying disheveled on the ground. But I've always insisted that religion in the public forum ought to be honest. And I have tilted at a lot of things that I thought were dishonest. And as I've said, I've often ended up on the ground from it, but I can't stop doing it. I'm still doing it.
That's what we like about you, right, John? One of the many things.
It's part of being prophetic.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.